My wife 32 threatened divorce for the 99th time to test if I 35 ma'am really love her. This time I said yes and signed the papers. She is shocked. I am sitting in a hotel room right now, trying to process what just happened. 3 hours ago, I signed divorce papers and walked out of my house. My wife Sophie thinks I am bluffing, but I am not coming back. We have been married for 7 years, together for 9. For most of that time, I thought we had a good marriage. I work in sales management, which requires travel about 40% of the time. The money is excellent. I make around $180K a year, and it has allowed us to live comfortably. Sophie hasn't worked in 4 years, which was her choice, and I have never complained about supporting both of us. But Sophie has never been happy with my travel schedule. From the beginning, she has made it clear that she thinks I prioritize work over our marriage. No matter how many times I have explained that I travel because I want to provide for us, she interprets every business trip as a personal rejection. Her friends Emily and Grace have made this worse. They are both married to guys who work local jobs and are home every night by 6 p.m. They have spent years filling Sophie's head with ideas about what a real husband should do. If Tom really loved me, he would find a way to be home more, Sophie would say after spending time with them. Emily's husband turned down a promotion because it would mean more hours away from her. That is what love looks like. At first, I tried to accommodate this. I turned down some travel opportunities. I arranged my schedule to be home for important dates. I brought her gifts from every trip. I spent my weekends focused entirely on her, trying to make up for time away. But it was never enough. The divorce threats started about 3 years ago. At first, they came during big fights about my schedule. Sophie would get upset about a last-minute trip, and in the heat of the argument, she would say things like, "Maybe we should just get divorced if work is more important than me." I would panic, apologize, and spend days reassuring her that she was my priority. I would usually end up canceling the trip or finding a way to shorten it. The pattern worked for her, so it became her go-to weapon. The threats became more frequent and more casual. Sophie started using them anytime she felt like I wasn't giving her enough attention. If I had to work late, if I wanted to play golf with friends, if I was too tired for a long conversation after a difficult day, out came the divorce card. "If you really loved me, you would choose me over this," became her standard line, followed by "maybe we should just end this if I am such a burden." Each time, I had dropped everything to prove how much I loved her. I had cancel plans, skip work events, and spend hours talking through her feelings. I thought I was being a good husband by showing her that she was more important than anything else, but the demands kept escalating. Sophie started expecting me to turn down any assignment that took me away for more than 2 days. She wanted me to be available by phone constantly when I traveled. She got upset if I went to dinner with colleagues instead of eating alone in my hotel room. Her friends reinforced all of this. "A man who truly loves his wife will find a way to be present," Grace would say. "You shouldn't have to beg for your husband's attention," Emily would add. I tried to set some boundaries. I explained that my career success benefited both of us, that I couldn't just opt out of the responsibilities that came with my position. But every attempt at a reasonable conversation ended the same way. "If you cannot put me first, then maybe we are not right for each other." I started keeping track of these threats after they became a weekly occurrence. In my phone, I had a note where I had marked down each time Sophie mentioned divorce as a way to win an argument. The count reached 98 over the past 2.5 years. Yesterday was number 99. I had been asked to attend a client conference in Denver next week. It is a big opportunity, potential for a promotion that would mean more money and eventually less travel. I mentioned it to Sophie over dinner, explaining how important it could be for our future. She put down her fork and stared at me. "Are you serious right now?" I tried to explain the opportunity, but she cut me off, "Mark. I cannot do this anymore. I am tired of competing with your job for your attention. I am tired of feeling like I don't matter to you." I have heard this speech dozens of times, but I stayed calm and tried to address her concerns. I reminded her that I had been home for 3 straight weeks, that we had had plenty of time together recently. "It is not about the amount of time," she said. "It is about your priorities. A husband who truly loves his wife would find a way to stay home." I could see where this was heading, but I hoped maybe this time would be different. Sophie, I love you more than anything, but this is my job. It is how I support us. I cannot just stop traveling altogether. She shook her head and said the words I had heard 98 times before. If you really loved me, you had prove it by choosing me. If you cannot do that, then maybe we should just get divorced. But this time, something in me snapped. Not in an angry way, more like something finally clicked into place. I looked at her calmly and said, "Okay." Sophie blinked, clearly expecting our usual dance of panic and reassurance. "What?" I said, "Okay. You are right. Maybe we should get divorced." The color drained from her face. "Mark, I didn't mean yes, you did. You have meant it 98 other times when you have said it, and you mean it now. You have made it clear that you don't respect what I do or why I do it. You have told me repeatedly that I am not the husband you want. So let's stop pretending this is working." I went to our home office, printed out divorce papers I had looked up months ago during one of her previous threats, and brought them back to the kitchen table. "Here," I said, signing my name on the bottom. "I am proving my love by giving you what you keep asking for." Sophie stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "You cannot be serious." I have never been more serious about anything in my life. I spent the evening packing my clothes and personal items. Sophie followed me around, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. She kept saying I was being dramatic, that I knew she didn't really want a divorce. But that was exactly the problem. For 3 years, she had used our marriage as a bargaining chip, threatening to destroy it every time she wanted to win an argument. She had turned "till death do us part" into "until I don't get my way." I left this morning and checked into a hotel. I have already called a lawyer and started the filing process. Sophie has been texting and calling non-stop, but I am not responding. I don't think she believed I was serious until I actually left. Part of me feels guilty for shocking her like this. But mostly, I feel relief. For the first time in years, I am not walking on eggshells, worried about triggering another divorce threat. I am not trying to prove my love to someone who uses it as a weapon against me. I loved Sophie enough to put up with 98 threats, but I love myself enough to stop at 99. Edit: a lot of people are asking if I tried marriage counseling. We went twice, about a year ago. Sophie spent both sessions explaining how my travel hurt her feelings. When the counselor suggested that threats weren't healthy communication, Sophie said he didn't understand the situation and refused to go back. Edit 2. Someone asked about my finances. I make significantly more than Sophie ever did, and I have been the sole provider for 4 years. I am not worried about supporting myself. I am more concerned about the emotional toll of constant manipulation. Update 1. It has been 10 days since I signed the divorce papers, and Sophie is finally starting to realize I am serious. For the first week, she kept texting me things like, "Come home when you are done with this tantrum and I know you don't really want to divorce me." She seemed convinced that I was just trying to scare her into backing down, the way her threats had always scared me. The wake-up call came when she got served with the official divorce petition 3 days ago. My phone started ringing immediately when I finally answered. Sophie was sobbing. "Mark, they delivered papers to the house. Official papers." "What did you do?" "I filed for divorce. Like we discussed." "We didn't discuss anything. You just left. Sophie, you asked for a divorce. I gave you what you wanted." She broke down completely. "I didn't want a divorce. I wanted you to fight for me. I wanted you to choose me over work." This is where I probably should have felt sorry for her, but I just felt tired. "I did choose you over work, Sophie. For 3 years, I have been choosing you. Every time you threatened divorce, I canceled trips, rearranged my schedule, and spent days reassuring you that you mattered more than my career. But it was never enough. You kept making the same threats because you liked having that power over me." She tried to argue that her threats were different, that they were just about wanting me to prioritize our marriage. But I have had 10 days to think about this clearly, without her constant emotional manipulation clouding my judgment. "You turned our marriage into a game," I told her. "Every time you didn't get your way, you put our entire relationship on the table as a bargaining chip. You made me prove my love by destroying my career prospects. And when I finally called your bluff, you are upset that I took you at your word. Sophie begged me to come home so we could work things out. She promised to stop making threats, to be more supportive of my career, to go to counseling. All the things I had asked for during our marriage, suddenly offered when it was too late. But here is the thing. I don't want to work it out anymore. I have spent 10 days without constant criticism about my work schedule. 10 days without walking on eggshells, worried about saying something that would trigger another ultimatum. 10 days without having to justify why I need to do my job well. I feel lighter than I have in years. My lawyer says the divorce should be straightforward since we don't have kids and I am not asking for alimony or property division. I just want to split our assets fairly and move on. Sophie is struggling with this more than I expected. According to my neighbor, who I am still friendly with, she has been staying with Emily for the past few days because being in our house alone is too depressing. Apparently, Emily and Grace have been less supportive than Sophie hoped. When she told them about the divorce papers, Emily said something like, "Well, you did keep threatening it." Grace suggested that maybe Sophie had pushed me too far with her ultimatums. It is interesting how quickly her support system crumbled when the threats actually had consequences. Sophie left me a voicemail yesterday that I almost deleted without listening to. She said she finally understood how her behavior had hurt me, and that she was sorry for taking my love for granted. She said she never realized how her threats made me feel until I was actually gone. Part of me appreciates that she is reflecting on her actions, but apologies after consequences aren't the same as apologies before them. She is not sorry for how she treated me. She is sorry that it didn't work. I am not angry anymore, which surprises me. I expected to feel furious or vindictive, but mostly I just feel sad that it took this long to recognize what was happening. For 3 years, I thought Sophie's behavior meant she really loved me and was just afraid of losing me. Now I see that she loved having power over me more than she loved me as a person. Someone who loves you doesn't threaten to leave you 99 times. They don't use your marriage as a weapon to win arguments. They don't make you choose between your career and your relationship unless there is actual abuse or addiction involved. I am moving into my own apartment next week. For the first time in almost a decade, I am going to live somewhere that feels peaceful instead of tense. Edit. Several people have asked about my job situation. I took that Denver conference, and it went well. My boss has been understanding about the divorce situation and flexible about my schedule during this transition. Ironically, I might actually end up with more time at home once I get the promotion. Edit 2. To the people saying I should have communicated better. I tried for 3 years to communicate about this issue. I asked for counseling, for compromise, for basic respect. Sophie's response was always the same. Another threat. At some point, you have to accept that some people aren't interested in solving problems, just in winning arguments. Update 2, it has been 6 weeks since I filed for divorce, and Sophie has gone through what I can only describe as the 5 stages of grief about our marriage ending. The denial phase lasted about 2 weeks, with constant calls and texts insisting I was overreacting and would come to my senses. The anger phase was shorter but intense. Sophie showed up at my new apartment 3 weeks ago. Furious that I had abandoned our marriage over work. She accused me of never really loving her, of looking for an excuse to leave, of being selfish and career-obsessed. I let her vent for about 20 minutes, then calmly said, "Sophie, you threatened to divorce me 99 times. I am not abandoning our marriage. I am accepting your repeated request to end it." That seemed to break something in her, and we moved quickly to the bargaining phase. She started sending long emails about how we could make things work. She had researched new careers for me that wouldn't require travel. She had found marriage counselors who specialized in work-life balance issues. She even suggested that she could get a job so I wouldn't feel pressured to travel as much. All solutions to problems she had never been willing to address during our marriage. The depression phase has been the hardest to watch, even though we are divorced. Sophie has apparently been struggling badly. Her friend Emily, who I run into occasionally since we live in the same area, mentioned that Sophie barely leaves the house and has been seeing a therapist. Part of me feels guilty about that. I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted the constant threats to stop. But yesterday, Sophie called me for the first time in 2 weeks, and I think we might have reached the acceptance phase. Mark, she said, and her voice sounded different. Calmer, less desperate. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I need to say something. I almost hung up, but something in her tone made me listen. I have been going to therapy, she continued, and I am starting to understand what I did to you, to us. I turned our marriage into a constant test that you couldn't win no matter how hard you tried. She talked for about 10 minutes, and it was the most honest conversation we had had in years. She admitted that the divorce threats had become automatic for her, a way to avoid dealing with her own insecurities about our relationship. She said she had been so focused on getting proof that I loved her that she had never stopped to appreciate how I was actually showing that love. You worked those long hours for us, she said. You traveled because you wanted to give us a good life. And instead of being grateful, I punished you for it. I made you choose between supporting our family and keeping me happy, and that wasn't fair. She didn't ask me to reconsider the divorce. She didn't try to bargain or make promises. She just apologized sincerely for the first time since this whole thing started. I know it is too late, she said. I know you cannot trust me anymore, and I understand why. I am not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I finally get it. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking about the woman I had married and the woman she would become during our marriage. The Sophie I fell in love with was confident and independent. But somewhere along the way, she would become insecure and controlling, constantly needing reassurance that I wasn't going to leave. The irony is that her fear of me leaving is what ultimately drove me away. Our divorce was finalized last week. It was surprisingly amicable. Sophie signed everything without argument and didn't ask for alimony or significant assets. She kept the house. I kept my retirement accounts and most of the savings. I got that promotion I mentioned, which comes with better pay and about 75% less travel. I am doing well professionally and personally. Do I miss being married? Sometimes. I miss having someone to share my day with, having a built-in companion for weekend activities. But I don't miss the constant anxiety, the walking on eggshells, the feeling that I had to prove my love every single day. I have been on a few dates, and it has been interesting to experience relationships without that underlying tension. When I tell someone I need to travel for work, they say, okay, have a safe trip, instead of I guess work is more important than me. It is amazing how different life feels when you are not constantly defending your basic responsibilities. Sophie and I don't talk regularly, but we are not hostile either. I hope she finds someone who can give her the kind of relationship she needs, and I hope she has learned to express her needs without making threats. As for me, I am finally in a place where I feel valued for who I am, not constantly tested to prove what I am worth. Edit. People keep asking if I have any regrets. I regret that it took me 99 attempts to recognize a pattern that was never going to change. I regret staying in a relationship where I felt like I was failing constantly, even though I was doing my best. But I don't regret leaving when I did. Edit 2. Someone asked about Sophie's friends Emily and Grace. From what I understand, they have been less present in her life since the divorce actually happened. It turns out it is easier to encourage someone to make threats when you don't think there will be real consequences. Final update: it has been 4 months since my divorce was finalized, and I wanted to give one last update for anyone who has been following this story. The reason I am writing this final post is that Sophie reached out to me last week with some news that made me reflect on everything that happened between us. She has been seeing someone new, a local teacher who doesn't travel for work. She wanted to let me know before I heard it through mutual acquaintances, which I appreciated. But more than that, she wanted to tell me that she has been doing well in therapy and has learned to handle her insecurity and need for constant reassurance differently. I know this might sound weird, she said, but I am grateful that you left when you did. If you had stayed and kept accepting my behavior, I never would have gotten the help I needed. I never would have learned that love isn't about control. She is right that it sounds weird, but I understand what she means. During our marriage, I thought I was being a good husband by accommodating her threats and insecurities. I thought patience and sacrifice were the same thing as love, but all I was really doing was enabling her to avoid dealing with her issues. By leaving after the 99th threat, I forced both of us to confront the reality of what our marriage had become. Sophie had to face the consequences of her behavior, and I had to admit that I had been accepting treatment that wasn't okay. Looking back, I don't think Sophie was intentionally manipulative or cruel. She was insecure and had learned that threats got her the attention and reassurance she craved. But the impact on me was devastating. For 3 years, I felt like I was failing as a husband because I couldn't make her feel secure enough to stop threatening divorce. I thought if I just tried harder, loved her more obviously, she would finally feel safe in our marriage. But I have learned that I cannot love someone out of their insecurities. I cannot prove my commitment to someone who is determined to test it constantly. Some problems aren't mine to solve. I spent years trying to meet Sophie's expectations, but those expectations kept changing because they weren't really about my behavior, they were about her fears. The divorce taught me that walking away isn't always giving up. Sometimes it is the most loving thing you can do for both people involved. I am in a good place now. I am seeing someone, Sarah, a marketing director I met through work friends, and the relationship feels completely different from what I had with Sophie. When I told Sarah about my travel schedule on our 3rd date, she said, "That sounds exciting. I would love to hear about the places you visit." She doesn't need constant proof that she is my priority because she can see it in how I treat her, not in what I sacrifice for her. We are taking things slowly, but I am optimistic about where it is going. More importantly, I am confident in my ability to recognize red flags early and address issues before they become patterns. Sophie needed to learn that love isn't about control. And I needed to learn that love isn't about surrendering your self-respect to keep someone else comfortable. We both learned those lessons, just not together. I don't regret the years I spent with Sophie. I learned a lot about myself and what I want in a relationship, but I also don't regret leaving when I did. After 99 chances, I finally found my peace. Edit. This post got a lot more attention than I expected. I appreciate everyone who shared their own experiences. Edit 2. Someone asked if I think Sophie has really changed. I hope she has, for her own sake and for her new relationship. But that is not my concern anymore. My focus is on building something healthy with someone who doesn't need me to prove my love through sacrifice and anxiety.